So we're going to still continue to work with standard form. This is your 2.5b notes. So as you're working through this, make sure you're on the side 2 of your notes right there right now. So example 4 here, we are supposed to write in standard form, but we're going to start off with y equals mx plus b. And actually, I'll show you another form as well if you prefer that. So they gave us a slope, it's 2/3. And they gave us an ordered pair, 6, 2. Well, 6 is our x, and y there is our 2. So we're going to plug that 6 there in for the x. And we're going to plug that 2 there in for the y. So you can take 2/3 times 6 there. So you could just do that on your calculator, 2/3 times 6. And if you did that, you get 4 on your calculator. 2 divided by 3 times 6. Or you could go ahead and go 2 times 6 gives us 12, divided by 3 gives us 4. And then solve for b. So I got to subtract 4. And b ends up being -2. So if I were to write this back out, I'm going to plug it in here. So I get y equals 2/3 x minus 2. Now it says to put it in standard form, and remember we cannot have a fraction in here, so let's eliminate our fraction by multiplying everything in here through by 3. So when we end up doing that, we end up getting 3y equals 3 times 2/3 x minus 2 times 3. So you get 3y equals 6/3 is 2x minus 6. Putting everything in standard form still, so I'm going to subtract 2x, subtract 2x. I get a -2x plus 3y equals -6. And then again, multiply everything through by -1 because you cannot have that leading term cannot be negative. So I get 2x minus 3y equals 6. So there's our final answer. So you can either use y equals mx plus b form, or I'm going to show you another method over here in part B here. The other one we could do is called what's point slope. So this is the form you'd use for something like this. So this would be, my point here would be x1, y1, and this would be 1, there would be my m. So I'm just going to plug my values in there. Y minus a -1 equals 1 times x minus -3. Well, now this becomes a minus becomes a plus there. Over here, same thing, a minus becomes a plus. You gotta distribute that 1 all the way through the parentheses here, so 1 times anything is just that. Now if it was a 2 out here, it'd be 2x plus 6, because you have to multiply the 2 times x and the 2 times the 3, but there's not a 2 there on the outside. My slope there is just 1. So now you gotta put it in standard form. Your x's and your y's need to be on the same side, so I'm gonna subtract x. So I get -x plus y plus 1 equals 3. Subtract 1. We end up getting x plus y equals, or -x plus y equals 2. And then again, you can't have that leading term there. That a term cannot be negative, so I'm going to multiply everything through by -1. So x minus y here ends up equaling -2. So -x times a -1 gives us a plain x, y times a -1 gives a -y, and 2 times a -1 here gives us a -2. So there's our final answer over here. Again, it's got to be in that standard form, ax plus by equals c. Two different ways of doing that. It's up to you which one you want to choose to do it. And this one here, they gave us 2 points now. We got -3, -4, and we've got 1, 4. So again, we have to write in standard form. So we got two choices again, and this time I'll start with y equals mx plus b, and then my second one down here, I'll use y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So notice this first one in A there, they did not give us a slope. So let's go ahead and find our slope. So our slope is m, and remember it's y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. So this here being my x1, y1, this being my x2, y2. So subtracting my y's there, I get 4 minus a -4 all over 1 minus a -3. So I get 8 over 4, which gives me 2. So 8 divided by 4 there is 2. So that's my slope. So I can simply substitute that in here. And then I can choose one of the ordered pairs to put in there for xy. So I'm going to do that next here. This is going to be my x. This is going to be my y. I could have also picked -3, -4, but I like the two positive numbers there better, so I'm going to pick the positive numbers. So I get 4 equals 2 plus b. Now I can subtract 2 from both sides, and I get b equals 2. And then remember, it goes right back in there. So my final answer is y equals, for now, for 2x plus 2. That just put it in slope-intercept form. We need to put it in standard form. So rewriting this, I'm going to subtract my 2x from both sides to put in standard form. And I get -2x plus y equals 2. And I can't leave it like that. It's almost in standard form, except I got a -2 there in front, and I need a positive there in front. So I'm going to distribute a negative all the way through, so I get 2x minus y equals -2. So there it is in standard form. Now, let's say you don't like doing that y equals mx plus b, and you like doing this point slope form. Well, let's go ahead and let's do a point slope form down here. So again, the same problem existed in that part A as it did in part B, is that we don't have a slope. We don't have that m value. So to find m there, or our slope, we take y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. I'm going to change that to an x1 there. So, and then I'm going to substitute my values in there. So I'm going to mark these up over here. So my 3 here is my x1. And then -4 is my y1. -1 there is x2. 2 there is y2. So subtracting my y's there, we get 2 minus a -4 all over -1 minus 3. So we get 6 over -4. Reduce that down by 2. 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 goes into -4 -2 times. So there's my slope. And then as we do this, we're going to go ahead and substitute our values in here. So y minus y1, which is -4, equals our m, which is -3/2, times x minus 3. So I've got a minus over here. That's going to become a plus. And I can distribute my -3/2 all the way through. -3/2 times x is a -3/2 x. And then a -3/2 times a minus 3 over there gives me a positive 9/2. So now I'm seeing I've got some fractions in there. We don't need to keep them in fractions. So let's go ahead and let's get rid of that denominator down there. So I'm going to multiply this whole thing through by 2. When I do that, I get 2y plus 8 equals 2 times -3/2 x here gives us a -3x. And then 2 times 9/2 there ends up giving us -18/2, which gives us a -9. Let's get our x's on the same side by adding 3x. Still trying to get in standard form, so 3x plus 2y plus 8 equals -9. And then my last step is to get the constant on one side. So I got to subtract 8. And I get 3x plus 2y equals -17. And there it is in standard form. All right. Parallel lines, if you remember these, parallel lines, something about these parallel lines, we, by definition there, have the same slope. So I'm going to write that up here. So you can see your example there. If I were to pick two really nice points here, my rise here would be 1, my run here would be 2. So I'm rising 1 and running 2, so my slope there would be a half. I can do the same thing here. There's a nice point there. There's a nice point there. I'm rising 1 and running 2, so they both have a slope of 1/2. Over here, perpendicular lines, they have opposite reciprocal slope. So if I look at an example here, I've got a nice point here, I've got a nice point here, so I'm going to rise 1, run 2. So the slope of this, I'll call this line 1, I'll call this line 2. The slope of line 1 there is a rise of 1 and a run of 2. And if I look at slope at line 2 there, and I'm going to find the slope of that one, I'll do that one there in blue here. So I'm going to do a point there, and it looks like a point there. So my slope here, I'm going to rise 2. So rising 2 and running 1 to the left. And so you can see how they're opposite reciprocal slopes. That first one is 1/2. So that's the positive one. Reciprocal means you flip that fraction, so you flip it upside down, so it becomes 2/1. And the first line 1 there is a positive 1/2, and line 2 there is a negative. So one's got to be positive and one's got to be negative. So there we have opposite reciprocal slopes. So example 6 here, we're supposed to write an equation in standard form, ax plus by equals c through -3, -1, and parallel to y equals 2/3 x minus 1. Now the only thing we're going to take from this equation is the slope. We're going to look at that slope. Since they're parallel lines have the same slope. This one has a slope of 2/3, so ours has a slope of 2/3. Okay? And then we're going to look back at that point, -3, -1. We're going to ignore that equation over there. No longer going to use that. So you get to choose which equation you like to use. I'm going to use y equals mx plus b. So my slope is going in here for my m. And then this is going to be my x and my y at -3, -1. So plugging those in there, I get -1 equals 2/3 times -3 plus b. So -1 ends up equaling -2 plus b. I'm going to add 2 to both sides to solve for b, and b ends up being 1. So now we're going to plug it back in here. So we get y equals 2/3 x plus 1. And then it says in standard form up there at the top. So standard form, I need to get rid of that 3 down there in the bottom there of that 2/3 there. So I'm going to multiply everything through by 3. So I get 3y equals 2x plus 3. Bring my 2x on the other side. So -2x plus 3y equals 3. And then change the signs here. So 2x minus 3y equals 3. So there's my nice equation. So I've got one more example here left to do. So again, looking here at the equation, the only thing I'm looking at here is for the slope. My slope here is 1/2. The one that's perpendicular to it, remember, is the opposite reciprocal. So I'm going to flip that over and then make my slope negative. So I end up getting a slope of a -2. So now I'm not going to look at that equation anymore. And if I want, I can use y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Plug my values in there. This being my y1, x or 2 there being x1. So there. So now I can clean this up over here. +2, distribute the -2 through, and bring the 2x over here. Subtract the 2, and I end up getting, there it is in standard form.